I had pretty high expectations going in, and my expectations going out was like way surpassed that. I think booking housing is so expensive at South by, so it was like I think a $500 plane ticket there and a $5,000 to stay in the creator house. So I was like, okay, this $5,000 investment, I expect a lot out of this because it was like pretty expensive. Yo, what is up, buddies? You just came back from at least my favorite conference ever, South by Southwest. After going to over 30 conferences, I could say South by was my favorite. How was your South by experience, Justin, after going to South by 5 years?
South by this year was good in an interesting way. I mean, we can dive into it a little bit more, but my South by experiences have changed drastically over the past. I mean, my first one was 2019 and then COVID hit. But this is the fifth one I believe that I've gone to, or fourth one that I've gone to. And each year has been a little bit different from the previous one. This one, no exception there. But glad that this was your first one. I know you were asking me like some tips and tricks on South by, and the advice that I always give people is literally whatever you're expecting South by to be, whatever conference that you've gone to in the past, it's probably like nothing like those before. But I think you can probably try to best explain what the past week and a half or so has kind of been for you.
Yeah, South by has been hardcore. I feel like it's like a bunch of conferences packed into a week and a half. There's like tech, there's creator economy, there's fashion, there's music, there's entertainment, there's film. So I feel like all the cool creatives and very cracked builders were all in the same city. Not all, but like a bunch of them were like in Austin for like a week and a half. It was so fun that I doubled my stay in Austin to be able to hang out with the buddies there. I also have a lot of friends from Austin. I used to work at EA and a lot of my coworkers were in Austin. So it was also fun getting to hang out with them like finally in person after being on Zoom calls for like every day for 2 years. So it was like amazing. But yeah, I really enjoyed it because of all the creators I was able to make friends with. And also it was very fruitful on like the business side. Like I was able to be in the same room as like head of partnerships, or like people like head of marketing at these like companies that I admire and use a product. So it was awesome being able to connect with them. And also I have like basically 20,000, not 20, 20 over 20 follow-up calls that I've been taking, and over like 6 figures of brand deals I've been negotiating for like creative economy stuff, design buddies, and more. So I feel like it was like honestly the most productive conference I ever attended because of all the high concentration of like creator economy stuff happening. Like I remember one day, I went to like 10 events. So I think it was like a Monday. And this is like it was like kind of, I had most of my days, my 10 days there, I was there for 10 days, was similar to this. But the craziest day was I woke up at I think 6:30 a.m. I ran with Brian, who was also staying at the creator house I was staying at. And then we ran like 7 miles at like an 8 minute pace. And it was really cold. I was like, okay, 7 miles in. We went for longer because we were just like chatting, and then it was like, oh, gotta go back. Um, and then when we got back, there was an event at the house. So I got back right before everybody came in. So like, look all sweaty. I got back into the house. I was like, I gotta take a shower, gotta look presentable. I got mingle a little bit. And then me and Lorraine, we hosted a LinkedIn creators meetup. Um, After LinkedIn Creators Meetup, I met up with my friend Delia, and we went to. It's like kind of South by. It's like you meet people, you make friends, and then you go on side quests. So I met Delia. We've actually been known each other like on social media for a couple of years. She makes really funny videos making fun of tech bros called Tech Unicorn, on Instagram. And we went to like Lumos House by Andrew Young, like a marketing event, and then we met some buddies there too. And then later we went to like Founders Inc., a creator meetup, and then we went to like many chats event. I'm like having a hard time remembering what exactly we went. We went to like I think the Fast Company Grill too, and then like I met a friend Carol that we hung out with, and Carol knew a lot of people in Texas, so we like were walking to like the Manifest Financial event because I was doing a brand deal with them. But on the way, we went to like a fancy bougie wine event. There's such a long line, but Carol knew someone who was like at the door, so she let all of us in. So it was like me, Justin, and Carol. And then yeah, we did that in Manifest Financial. event, and after that, I was recording a bunch of videos for them because like a brand deal. We walked back home because the Ubers were like $50 for like a mile, so we just like walked a mile back home, and there was another event happening, and I was like, and then yeah, I think that was like almost 10 events. About 10 events. I'm probably missing some in between, but there's like a Waymo event happening too. That I think after that event, I was like so hungry, so I finally ate food, and then yeah, I just like chilled, and then yeah, I went to sleep. But yes, that is like a typical day at South by, but it was so fun because I got to hang out with a lot of creatives along the way. And also thank you, Justin, for connecting me with Jerry. Jerry's like amazing. He's like super cracked. Cracked means good. By the way, I use cracked a lot, but like sometimes the boomers think it means like on drugs, but it's not on drugs. It means good. He's like super cracked at hosting events. And so it was amazing being able to stay at his creator house.
No, yeah. I mean, I think again, I worked for Jerry for like 1.5, 2 years or so. Jerry's amazing, especially when it comes to sort of community engagement and like connecting people, right? And he's really good at remembering like what you're good at, what someone else is good at, and like why you guys should connect. Which I do not have that skill. I'm good at like connecting people, but I have terrible memory when it comes to that stuff. But Jerry's amazing. He is cracked when it comes to connecting people and like hosting events, things of that nature. But what you described, as wild as that sounds, that is a very productive day during South by, and like honestly, kind of what is the beauty of South by. Um, Now, the insane part that I will say about what you just described is this year at South by is a lot smaller than the year that I went in 2019. So imagine all the stuff that you did, right? But probably you could have 3 to 5x that 5, 6 years ago, because of that's how big the conference was in terms of, especially in the tech world. Uh, and that's not to knock South by at all. I think it has been amazing, especially this year for creator economy stuff, like our specific niche. I felt the same way too from a business standpoint. I thought it was really good, way better than previous years at South by. But my quote unquote like fun meter was a lot lower this year compared to past years. And so that would be my way of describing how South by went from my perspective. But overall, like very successful. I think we have a lot of great leads for how creators make money. To be honest, for me, like I was pitching how creators make money more than declassified just because of the nature of declassified. I was pitching declassified more during South by Southwest EDU, which is sort of their educational portion before the craziness of regular South by starts. But yeah, it is absolutely insane. That is literally why when you ask me to describe what South by is, I'm like, it's a conference, but just don't go into it with very much expectations because you're gonna get pulled in so many different side quests, right? That you're just not gonna know where you're gonna end up that day. I remember meeting you like throughout that day, on the day that you just described. I think we saw each other at like Fast House Company, or Fast Company House, and then I think we had gone to the Uber Waymo house and came back to the house just to say hi to everyone or like good night to everyone. But then there was an event still going on at the time. And we were texting you because you were like, "Hey, should I go to the Uber Waymo event?" I was like, "Ah, no, like it's closing down." And then you're like, you asked me where I was at, or me and Michelle are at, and I was like, "Oh, literally right behind you." And you turned around and you're like, "Oh, what's up, Justin?" So like that's South by, right? What I will say is in 2019 when I went, imagine doing everything that you just did, but on your walk back, because the Uber was so expensive, you hit another 3, 4 houses because they just happen to be there on your walk home. So that is how insane it used to be, where it would literally take like it would take over all of downtown. Um, where you would just be walking to event to event to event to event, and each of those events had panels going on, parties going on, every single thing. It was absolute madness.
Oh wow, yeah. I remember like in the last days, I was just walking around the city, and then there's a bunch of like houses going on with live music, panels. That was really great. How was your experience at like EDU compared to regular South by? I heard it's like more corporate.
Yeah, I mean, you can imagine, right? Like the educational world is a lot different than the tech world, both from a persona standpoint, but also from a money standpoint too, right? So I also think the reason that 2019 was so big, and then now even like if you're looking at 2025 compared to 2022, which was the first one after COVID, I just think marketing spend is down, especially within tech
Mm.
companies, and so there's less and less activations, right? Um, which, like, yes, it's a bad thing, especially for our space, right? Because we thrive off of marketing dollars, but it's just the nature of the sort of economy that we're in. My
Mm.
friend always likes to say that South by is his sort of litmus test of how the economy is doing. Which again, I was talking to a friend who runs an agency that typically works on putting on these houses for different brands. Last year there was like 200 activations. This year there was 100. Um, so it's already halved from last year, right? And then next year is going to be a little bit weird because the convention center is getting demolished. So it's going to be kind of all over the place. So I'm very interested
Hmm.
to see how all that plays out. But kind of like to your question about EDU and versus regular South by, EDU is great for me because I stand out like a sore thumb there. A, I'm still always the youngest person in the room by usually 10, if not 20 years, which is pretty insane because I've been going to this conference since 2019. And then B, um, social media is still not a very big topic within higher edu or just education in general. It's funny, like they've literally had to rebrand it away from social media. So now instead of calling it social media or podcasts or anything like that, it's called new media. And like social media is not new. If you can, which is kind of wild, right? But that's how it's branded in that space. So it's a different culture, different persona for sure, but it's always great from a declassified lens.
But I'm so curious, like, why are they so afraid of social media? Is it because they are afraid to learn new tools? They've been a bit older, so they've been doing what they've done for years, or like, why is it like that? Or
Yeah, I
why do you think
mean,
it's like that?
so the crazier thing is the persona that goes to South by Southwest EDU is typically more forward thinking. And so these are the most forward thinking like EDU people, and they're still calling it quote unquote new media, like they've had to rebrand it. And I think the main thing when it comes to education, especially around like social media and stuff like that, is if you think about why we love social, right? Why even we have this podcast is kind of social has democratized knowledge, so to say, not necessarily education, but it's
Mm.
democratized knowledge, right? And so school, especially higher ed, at least has always been up in like this ivory tower, and education slash knowledge has always been sort of their moat. But that moat has kind of disappeared because of social, and it's like this fight between the person who has a PhD versus a person who's just been grinding AI and like has read all the same books that the PhD person has probably read, and but they just don't have the certificate. Like, does that mean the same thing? Right. And so I think there's a hesitancy to accept it because if they do kind of accept it in a way, they're kind of diminishing their moat essentially. But I think they're getting to a point where they have to accept it. That was kind of my perspective on it all because it was like when I was first getting into the education space, it was either Justin, go and get your master's PhD so you can break into these rooms, or get a ton of following and a ton of eyeballs so that they have to pay attention to you. And so I went the eyeballs and attention route.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that. I feel like academia, a lot of kids these days, especially like Gen Z folks, are not even like going to college. At least what I don't know the stats, but at least what I can see on my Twitter, LinkedIn, a lot of kids are dropping out of school to build startups. Um, and even like me, if I was in high school right now, knowing that I wanted to go to media stuff, I probably wouldn't have even went to college. But I also feel like it was a good experience because when I was in high school, I wanted to be pre-med. So I was like, I'm glad I got that out of the way. But I wouldn't make my kids I would like if I ever had kids, like, they could go to college or not go to college, and I'll be okay with it.
I think I have a
True.
similar perspective. Like my thing with college is I feel like most people are told and are taught the wrong game of college, right? Like college isn't this place that you need to go and spend 100,000, two hundred
Mhm.
thousand, $300,000 to quote unquote find yourself, right? There's cheaper ways to get into college, whether it's the community college route for 2 years and then you go to a 4 year institution after your 2 years at a community college. That's relatively affordable. And also, most state schools are pretty affordable as well, right? It's only when you start going to these sort of like niche private schools that are charging 60, 70, 80, $90,000 a year, or you're going out of state, where I think that decision about college starts to get a little wary.
Mhm.
Um, I actually think enrollment is up because what you'll typically see is during like times of recession, people will go back to school, which is funny, right? So it's like, can't find a job with my current degree. So my thought process is spend more money, go into more debt to try to find a job again, which in theory, it doesn't make sense, right? But that's kind of a lot of people's rational thought of everything. It's like, oh, I can't find a job right now. Let me go back to school, buy some time, but also quote unquote upskill myself so that I can go and find a job. But I digress. That's sort of like the educational world.
Interesting. Also,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
another thing to add to that is I mean, we can go back to, like, creator economy stuff that I noticed. I was talking with my friend who works for the Singapore government yesterday, and she said she focuses on her boss. She, like, disagrees with this because she's kind of, like, more open-minded, but, her boss was like and I think the team was like, they're focused on, like, young talent, but young talent only going to forgot what it's called, but like Berkeley, Stanford, top schools, and that's the talent they would like sponsor and invest in is whoever goes to these schools. So I feel like to this day, there's still people who care about where you went to school and status, things like that, which I've also noticed this at South by is I noticed people like don't give a shit about me until they find out how many followers I have.
That's the space, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, right? Which we've talked about this, both like through text and stuff, right? Like it's sad that
Yeah.
that that is the case, but that's the nature of our space because they're like, oh, who's Grace? Who's Justin? Right? And then it's like, oh, Grace, you've got millions of followers. Oh, Justin, you've got hundreds of thousands of followers. Oh, now we should start paying attention to you.
Mhm.
Why that's the case? Why can't we just be knowledgeable? I don't know. But maybe this podcast is what gets us there, right? This
Yeah.
is our thought leadership conversation and our thought leadership personal branding here. But
Yeah.
in your perspective, I think is is South by been like your first ever like creator economy focused event?
It has, I think. I've been to like Figma and Adobe Max as a creator, and I've done their creator stuff, but Figma and Adobe Max are more focused on designers and creatives, not necessarily like creator economy specific. But
Yeah, I
those
feel
are
like
my
that's
other
less
top
money
preference. Yeah, less
like
no, not less
focus,
money. It's
right?
all like design and the craft.
Got you. And so what did you like going into South by, right, from a business standpoint, what were you expecting versus what kind of came out of it? Because I know you mentioned that you've got like 20 follow-up calls, potentially like six figures plus worth of deals to work through, right? Um, but from your standpoint, like what was your expectation going in versus what
Hmm.
actually happened?
I had pretty high expectations going in, and my expectations going out was like way surpassed that. So, um, thanks to you for introducing me to Jerry. But I think Jerry and we've been following each other on LinkedIn for years, and I think booking housing is so expensive at South by. So it was like, I think a $500 plane ticket there and a $5,000 to stay in the creator house. So I was like, okay, this $5,000 investment, I expect a lot out of this. Because it was, like, pretty expensive. One of the most next to Summit at Sea, one of the most expensive days I ever spent. But I kind of, like, went into, like, an open mind, like, I was asking you, like, because you've been to South by so many times, like, "Oh, which creator events are you going to? Which one should I go to? How do I find them?" and I signed up for a bunch of them, and I end up going to basically all of them too. And I feel like when I talk to people, um, I'm not really necessarily looking for something out of them, but looking for to understand what they're working on so I can follow up later. 'Cause I don't want to come off as like really transactional. Like I really want to learn from these like marketing leads and other creators like what they're working on and maybe collab and stuff like that too. So I kind of just like wanted to maximize my surface area of luck by showing up at a lot of events. And sometimes the event was really good, I would stay longer because not all the events I went to were really good. So, um, I learned this because, like, I was at a party in SF and it's really great, and my friends wanted to go to another one. It sucked. It sucked so bad. So I was like, whenever I find a good party, I will stay because it is sometimes like hard to get that back. Um, but honestly, like, I feel like I got way more because the ROI of it was really great. I feel like because I spent a lot of money to go there, I expected it's more like a business trip, but I also like really want to make friends because I want to learn from other creators because I live in San Francisco. There's not a lot of full-time creators out here. So I just wanted to like make friends and potentially I want to try living in LA. So I end up meeting a lot of friends who live in LA, who live in Austin, who live in New York. Now I have people to hang out with. So I was like going to make friends, going to have fun memories, but also going because knowing that I dropped a lot of money on this trip, I needed to get an ROI. This the I guess the Asianness in me. This is like, all right, I'm gonna just get right to the point. What are you working on? What are pain points? How can I fill that gap? And it was really fruitful. Like I think they appreciated that. They appreciated how like direct I was, and it was like really really productive in that aspect. Um, yeah. So overall, it was like great. We end up staying longer, so I think at least like after the creator economy days, like I would say like after March 12th, there actually wasn't like that much going on. So I was like pretty exhausted from that event, all the events at that point. That we were just like kind of I was just catching up with some of my friends. I rated not rated, but like I went to some design meetups, like local design meetups, like two of them, in Austin. And they all like recognized me from Design Buddies. So it was like pretty cool. And I made like another like salary video, like asking Austin, like Texas designers how much they were making, and people on LinkedIn really liked it. So kind of just like treated that as another like, oh yeah, I'm just here in Austin, seeing all my buddies here in Austin, and yeah, overall like it surpassed it. How about you? What was your expectation and outcome?
No, that's amazing. I actually want to dive a little bit more into that before I
Mhm.
share like
Yeah.
sort of my perspective on stuff because
Mhm.
I think we're different in the way that we network and we move around event wise, which again, not necessarily a bad thing, right? There's not necessarily a right or wrong way. It's just more what's right for you. Um, but now understanding like the cost of getting to South by, I understand like why you went so hard. Again, that's kind of like your personality as well. Like I feel like when you get into the zone, you're like locked in and
Mhm.
you try to do as much as possible, which I respect, right? But when you're going to these events, you mentioned like, oh, test out the party, see or the event, see if it's a good event. If it's not, then I kind of dip. But like, what is your approach when you're walking up to someone if you don't know them? Because I think that's the scariest thing for most creators, especially the ones that aren't business focused, right? They're like, how do I even jump into a conversation? Do I wait to get introduced? But then if you wait, then they might just leave or whatever it may be, right? How do you overcome that sort of anxiety when it comes to just cold tapping someone on the shoulder or saying hello?
That's a great question. I'm still really awkward about it. I struggle with going up to people. All my stuff is inbound usually, but I hang around with super connectors like you, Jerry, AJ. I just like stayed around y'all and Upton as well. Like they Upton, like man, he knows he's such a great person. He knows so many things going on. I just like he just texts me like, "Oh, where are you going now?" And I just share like, "Oh, this is where I'm going." He, like shares all the parties, and then I also like later I made a group chat of people I've been party hopping with, like on iMessage, and I just like hang around people I know. And then like I would just meet their friends, and then like it would kind of grow bigger and bigger. I really rely on introductions and hang out with super connectors, but if I were like by myself, trying to go up to people, I would try to compliment what they're wearing, and I would try to like dress up there in a way that pops out, and just like wear big bows or like big dress. Um, bright colors, something that like is very fashionable, like stands out because it makes it easier for me to relate to someone who's also like dressed up like that. So especially like I dye my hair, just like networking hack, I would like go to people who dye their hair or people with like bright colors or the same color. I would just like, hey, I like your outfit. And it just like gives me a weight and I was like, oh yeah, what brings you to South by? And they're like, oh, they're a content creator, like, oh, what do you make content about? Um or like maybe just like if they're like ahead of partnerships, like, oh, what are you like working on these days? Or like, oh, like what brings you to South by? And like what do you just kind of like start as a small talk. Um and I just feel like also like with the event theme, if it's like a creators event, I would ask them like, oh, do you make content too? Like same with like founders event, like, oh, like what are you building? Yeah, but also sometimes like it's like different people have different temperaments. Like I like to ask people like what they're working on first because I do so many random things. I don't want to like get them confused, especially if they're like head of partnerships. I want to make them know that we have our podcast or they're a designer. I want to let them know we have design buddies. Um so I always ask them like what they do first so I can emphasize what might be the most interesting to them about myself. Um Also on the other hand, what makes me a little bit uncomfortable, maybe just because I'm not like this in nature, is like if people like people mentioned earlier, like people who only care about you if you have a certain number of followers. Same with these people everywhere, like literally in San Francisco, some people don't give a shit unless you've raised like $69 billion or something, whatever. So there's like people like this everywhere, not just like LA, okay? Um, SF too. So there's some people who this is what used to make me so nervous is like when I was like a smaller creator, like they like suddenly don't care if I don't have like I don't know a million followers or whatever. But now I'm just like if I notice that person is like that, I can play that game too. It's just a game. If they ask me how many followers I have, I answer. And I was like, "How about you?" And or they ask me how old I am. I'm like, "Oh, how about you?" So
I
just
love
like
that.
I noticed that comes with men a lot. Not I'm not generalizing all men, but like a lot of people like always wonder how old I am. So I just like tell them and then I ask them have I and they like say everything older. And I'm like, but how about you?
That's I love that
So
you're able to switch that around. I I get asked it a lot in the education space. I definitely do not swap it around because it's usually like educational world is a lot more like women in there, and I'm
oh.
definitely not going to go around asking
Ooh.
women what their age is, um, which is wild that guys are asking you that question.
Especially
To be
older
honest,
men.
yeah, wild, wild. But I think again, our approaches are different because when I go to an event, right? So my event strategy, especially at places like South by, is go to the event. If they've got free food, grab the free food. The first thing that I do, go to my corner, eat it, so I don't have to worry about eating throughout the event, so to say. So I'm not like eating while like talking to someone. So just my priority, especially during South by, is just food, right? So get see if there's food, grab the food, go to my corner, and then I'll just lurk. I'll lurk for like 5, 10 minutes, and I'll try and see who's the person that everyone is talking to, or that everyone says hi to, that no one's talking to them though, right? So I kind of go the opposite approach because my thing is the people that the people that have budget at these things, head of partnerships, marketing, whatever it may be, I've gotten to the point where I can get that introduction probably from someone, right? Jerry, AJ, yourself, whoever may be, the same way that you have. But what I'm looking for in the person that I'm looking for is that next super connector, right? Is that next person. And a lot of times they're not the person that's the loudest in the room, right? But they're the person that people walk when they walk through the door, they dap them up, say what's up, and then they go and find the partnership person, right? Because most of the time that's everyone's sort of like goal at these events, right? Everyone's pitching that partnerships person. Everyone wants that meeting with that persona. But that secondary person, they don't get as much love and I'll get more time with them, right? Rather than like that quick 2, 3 minute conversation. And I can have a 10, 15, 20, 30 minute conversation sometimes with these people and like actually get to know what they do and have a deeper, again, relationship, build a deeper relationship with them during this one event. So that's my
Mm.
strategy when it comes to these things because those partnerships people, I personally feel like I can find introductions to those people in some way, shape, or form, just because of how much stuff that both you and I have done in the space and people that we know. But I don't know that behind the scenes person. Like I met the one of the guys or one of the brains, apparently that's how he pitched himself, behind Johnny Harris at the Carrot Party, right? But he wasn't the one that everybody's walking up to because he's not head of partnerships at Carrot or Thicknific or Epidemic, who are the ones sponsoring the event, right? Uh, but he's someone who's really important to know, who's also very well connected because he's worked on one of the biggest like YouTube channels in the history of YouTube, right? And one of the most popping ones right now. So that's my sort of
Mm.
way that I think about networking and stuff like that at these big events. I also hate big events. Like I'm not someone to talk to 20, 30, 50 people one night. I try to pick my 5 or 10 um during the night.
Yeah, same. I feel like normally in SF, I just like go with my friends and meet their friends because I'm just like afraid of meeting someone who is boring. No offense, but someone who's like, when you're like, I feel like, for example, like usually I go to networking events for the vibes. Like I don't care, like what happens. But when I'm like at South by because I spent money on it, a lot of money, so I was just like, gotta get out of it.
I get
It
that.
was like a little different.
All right,
Like
so
I can.
what's your follow-up strategy when it comes to these events? So like how like when you're talking to someone, how do you get their information? Where do you store it? And how are you following up?
Yeah, so I actually try to send them a message immediately. Afterwards, it's like, oh, great chatting about XYZ. Let's reconnect about XYZ after South by Southwest. I either try to get their email, or their number, because it depends. If it's like a friend that I make, like socialize, I'll get their number. If it's just like a business connection, I'll get their email. Sometimes they share with me their number too. So whatever is feels more like top priority messaging for them, I'll try to get. And then I on my notes app, I screenshot the person's profile and then after South by, I just like took all the screenshots and all the messages. I try to do this every day, but I don't always get to it. Is in the notes app. I write down like what's their name, what their company, and what we're following up on, and just always like I remember on that Friday, after South by, like a week ago, I was just like sending so much follow up messages, and then if it's like at the end of the day, I would like schedule it to go out like 6 a.m. Monday. I like to schedule emails to go out at 6 a.m. because people think I have my shit together and wake up early, but I don't. So sometimes like 6:03. I don't know. I just do that random thing.
That's a
So
sneaky little hack. I like that. I like that.
yeah, it was like, oh,
The
Grace, morning bird. Like, no, I'm not.
I
Or
love
yeah,
it.
just have a
The
good
the
impression.
only thing that I don't like the only thing that I don't like about scheduling emails is at least with the email tracker that I use, I can't track scheduled sends for some reason.
Oh,
Um
okay.
So again, that's just because of the one that I use, which I think I need to find a new one. But the I can't track scheduled sends, which kind of sucks. But I agree with that. That's a hack. I've never done that before, but that makes a ton of sense.
Oh, wait, I'm so curious. Like, I never use a email tracker. How do you usually like? What's your strategy? Like, do you like follow up with people after they've seen it after a certain time, or like how do you use that information?
Yeah, so I don't use it in a super like strategic way in the way of like, oh, they just read it, I need to follow up type of thing. I look at it more of trying to get a gauge of if they care about this thing or not. So for instance, when I send a pitch, right, and I see that it's only been viewed once and that one view was a week ago when I sent it, it usually means one of two things, right? One, they don't care, or two, they read it and they saved it, but they just haven't gotten back to it again. So I'll usually send a follow up from there, see what it is, send another follow up. The other thing that I use my email tracker for is to see if my headline or the subject line was good enough, right? Because if they don't view the email, that means that subject line probably sucked, and they didn't even get to see the copy within the email, right? So like if let's just say I'm doing a large send and I'm trying to send to like 25, 50 brands or whatever it may be, and I see that only 10 out of the 50 people read it, I'm like, ah, shit, let me just change the subject line. to something better, right? That's the data that I use there. Now, when I send something out and it's getting 5, 10, 15, 20 views or whatever it may be, and there's only one other person on there, I know that that message is being sent to a bunch of different people within that person's company, right? So that usually is a really good sign that they're interested in the pitch and they're sending it to different people, or different people are at least seeing it. And so that's sort of the way that I use that data. It's not like a super strategic way of like, okay, if they view it 2 times, then I'm going to send this type of follow up, or 3 times I'm going to send this type of follow up. It's more of seeing if they see it. If they don't see it, how can I change it so that they do see it? And then if a bunch of people are viewing it, then that's usually a good sign.
Mm. I should try that. It's like A/B testing, like thumbnail testing, but message topic testing. Which tool do you use? Not sponsored.
I think it's called Streak. Is it Streak Email Tracker? Yeah, Streak
Street.
Email Tracker for Gmail.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
just an extension. I think literally all it does is it puts like a pixel on on the email, and so whenever someone opens up the email, it, like the pixel pops off, so that you can tell if someone has read your email basically.
Mm, cool. I'm gonna check that out. But I love your networking strategy. It's like I actually like really hate the word networking. It feels like icky and transactional. But sometimes, if people play that game, it's just a game. I can play it too. I can get the monies. I can riz them up. So it's like I try not to like do it like that. But I use the word networking because a lot of people know what it means. But I personally think it's kind of icky. But it's like sometimes you gotta move in life and get what you need out of it. It's like on a mission. It's like, okay, it's just hustling. But yeah, I'm gonna try to like observe more at my next event, who people are talking to, and then just saying hi to, but also just saying hi for a little bit. Um, yeah, because it tells them like they probably know a lot of people. So yeah, get food, stay in the corner, observe, and then go attack. Not attack, but like go approach.
So like my best story about this, right? And I won't say this guy's name, but like we've talked on like Instagram DMs and stuff. Like I'm pretty chill with him basically. So I went to an event in Orlando, which was like a gaming event, right? And so I was there just kind of lurking around. And all of a sudden I see this guy that everybody is dapping him up, right? Everyone's saying what's up to him, literally everyone, but he's not like a featured speaker. He's not a featured gamer. I kept checking to see if he was like, quote unquote, one of these important people, so to say, that was supposed to be at this event. And he wasn't. And so I was like, what's up with this guy? Like, why do people know him? Right. And so when he's kind of just chilling there in the corner on his phone, I like walk up and I literally just like, yo, like, what's going on? I literally see everybody dapping you up and saying what's up to you. I don't know who you are, but like would love to just chat and see like where this conversation goes, basically, right? As awkward of an opening as that is, it starts the conversation. And as long as you're a good conversationalist, that bad opening doesn't matter, right? They're not going to remember that. But essentially, it turns out that this guy was not one of the professional gamers. He wasn't like quote unquote anyone important there, right? Like he was still going to school, I believe, at the time. But his aunt was like the VP of sports management at one of the top sponsors of this event. And then he introduced me to his aunt. She was super chill. She's actually come out to one of the events that we've hosted in the past when I was in Orlando. And then she offered me 2 tickets or 2 wristbands to get into a VIP party at the event. Like when I say VIP, like there were US men's national team soccer players there, Kaká, who those who watch soccer, you will know who Kaká is. I got to meet him, take a photo with him and everything, which is like a once in a lifetime opportunity. Um, Again, just from lurking and seeing how people are interacting with everyone, right? A lot
Mm.
of times, a lot of times, some of the most important people in a room aren't the ones that you would think. There's always that secondary layer, right? It's always like if you become friends with the assistant to the really important person, that's how you get it in with a really important, quote unquote, important person, right? Because that assistant is the actual gatekeeper. to the other person. So
Mm.
people don't think like that typically. They just try to get to that person, but everyone is trying to. And so my thought process is always like, let's just say the head of partnerships at I'll just use Carrot because I know they don't have a head of partnerships. But for instance, let's just say the head of partnerships at Carrot, that person would probably get hounded hundreds of times, if not thousands of times throughout their time at South by Southwest. So you're competing with thousands of people. But let's just say that head of partnerships had an assistant who also happened to be at that event. That person's probably not getting hounded at all throughout the whole time at
Mm.
South by, right? And so you have a better chance of standing out with the actual gatekeeper, um, than like versus trying to talk to the quote unquote like important person.
That is such a life hack. I never thought of it that way. You're very observant. I need to learn how to observe more. I just kind of jump right into it
I,
because
I'm
I
just
lack
like
patience.
I'm just a grade A lurker. I that's that that's my skill set.
I'm not a lurker. I should lurk more. Yeah, that would help. But yes, that I'm gonna try that next networking event. I'm actually like I'm going to a party tonight. It's not a networking party, but I'm just gonna see who's the super connector in the room and just like go up to them and stuff. Yeah. I'm also curious. Like I know a lot of people. What are the kinds of topics you've noticed people talk about? I feel like LinkedIn was the shiny kid in town, like B2B creators and LinkedIn, at least in my circles. But what do you notice amongst these conversations you had with other creators, brand managers about the creator economy at South by?
I think LinkedIn is definitely big, for sure. LinkedIn video, right? I mean, we've
Hmm.
definitely seen the push there. YouTube long form is the other one that everyone seems to be trying to understand and crack. I would say those are probably the two biggest ones. And my my perspective is I kind of agree. I mean, that's where my focuses are, right? With I'm trying to get my LinkedIn back up as well and then grow not only the How Creators Make Money YouTube channel, but also Declassified's like long form YouTube channel. So I would say my priorities kind of align with what I heard at South by. Um, did anything surprise you during your
Hmm.
conversations at South by?
Hmm. Not really. I've kind of seen at least my doom scroll is LinkedIn. Yeah. So like a lot of the people I see on my feed are like people who create content on LinkedIn and like LinkedIn content agencies. So B2B creators is pretty top. Trying to think. I feel like I hosted a LinkedIn creators meetup and the room was packed. So I feel like a lot of people really want to get on that, especially video. Um, yeah, typical like people like afraid to put themselves out there. People are scared of LinkedIn becoming like TikTok. I'm part of the problem. Um, yeah, I trying to think. I feel like people are not really talking about TikTok as much anymore. People care more about like YouTube Shorts, LinkedIn Reels, because I think I'm not keeping up. I feel like from my understanding with the TikTok news is like they have a couple of months to really finalize like the
No, I think
ban or
it's like
no
next
ban.
week. It's like 2 weeks,
Oh,
I think. Yeah,
all
yeah, yeah. I
right.
think
Yeah, I
it's
saw
like
something in
mid-April.
March or April. Yeah, I saw. Yeah, so I feel like a lot of brands are cutting back their budget on TikTok. So I see a more trend in like B2B creators, long form too. Because I feel like with TikTok, I've noticed this. Okay, this is like a random thing I've heard on the podcast, but I remember I think it was like one year at VidCon or some other big creator conference. There was like the YouTubers and the TikTokers. The YouTubers had like way more fans coming up to them. The TikTokers had like way less. But I think TikTok, I think, was the main sponsor of like one creator conference. And like there's more fans with the YouTubers because they were able to build like more like a parasocial relationship with them because they were being more like get in deep with them versus TikTokers like very like scroll past. It's hard to remember what you've seen because there's so much people out there. Um, yeah, no, I've just noticed more trend towards like long form B2B people. I feel like there's still a lot of brands wanting to sponsor stuff. Um, but I'm also like pretty new to the space. Oh, also I met a lot of people who wanted to be my manager, actually. Not at South by, but like people after I go to South by creating a lot of content about the creator economy stuff. I'm actually in talks with two potential creator managers next week. And these are actually people who've known me for a long time. One of them has been following my content for years, also manages one of my good friends who's also a big design creator. And one of them, we both worked at EA actually, but he also quit his job. Similar reasons I had, but he has been building communities. He's like head of partnerships like Asian Hustle Network. So um, I just feel like a lot of there's and also another LinkedIn creator manager also reached out to me too. So I felt like that was interesting. It kind of surprised me. I never personally thought of having a manager, but reflecting on what most of my time has been spent, like my working time this year, was a lot of relationship building. With like my own personal brand. Design buddies, how creators make money, and going to build relationships so they can help me with that. I do really enjoy building relationship, but I also like really miss creating. And I also feel like I still have a lot of room to improve in my negotiation skills. I don't mind like taking like a 15-20% cut if the manager can negotiate something way higher. So I end up making more money, more deals, more time creating anyway. So I don't know, that was like my shocking thing. I was just like, have I reached that level? I'm just like, wow, that's cool. But at the same time, I'm just like, gotta read the contracts, whether they're exclusive or non-exclusive. So I've been talking to a lot of my creator friends who have worked with the same manager and just like getting their thoughts on it. But I don't know, just like something I've gotten from South by is like connecting and reconnecting with these creator managers.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like South by was great for you, right? Which is
Hmm.
awesome. I'm glad that you're able to make it out. The managing thing, like we've explored it a little bit. I have for other friends who do have managers. It really just depends on who your manager is, right? And like I
Hmm.
told you, the advice that I always share is just make sure you read that contract, right?
Hmm.
And I always say try and do a test, right? Because if you do a 3 month, 6 month test or something like that, and they can't bring you anything, then it's like, well, why would you continue working with them, right? If you can't bring me anything in 3 to 6 months. So that's awesome though. Glad that things are moving and giving yourself momentum. I think you think yourself smaller than you really are sometimes. Like the Design Buddies platform is massive, right? And I think manager could be the right move for you. But speaking about VidCon, I was at the year of VidCon that you're talking about. And so basically what happened was pretty much every year previously, YouTube had always been the main sponsor. And then I think the year after COVID, um, TikTok became the main sponsor of VidCon for the first time that it wasn't YouTube. And yeah, a bunch of people did not show up for the TikTok meet and greets because I do agree with you. I think YouTube long form, you build a much stronger, deeper audience compared to TikTok. If we're just looking at strict number of views, I mean, even if you look at podcasts, right? Like I usually say, the longer the form of content, the deeper relationship you typically have with your viewer. Podcasts, I would say, is the second longest to streaming, right? And so podcasts typically have the most loyal audience besides streaming, I would say. Even if you look at us, like our total downloads, I think between every single platform is like three, four, maybe 500, because we haven't really like tried to push it too much anywhere. And we've already gotten like 5 or 6 like really long comments and like testimonials about how people are really loving the content that we're producing, right? Versus on like social, whether it's LinkedIn, TikTok, whatever it may be, right? Like we've probably gotten more posts or more views on our posts, but none of them have been a comment of those like substantial meanings, so to say. Um, which I think is really cool and really interesting to look deeper into. And that's one of the main reasons why I wanted to start the podcast is because I want to have these long form conversations with you and then our guests, whoever we end up bringing on. But it's been dope so far.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, it's been so much fun. I've been learning so much from you as well about like negotiation, life,
The Yap
networking,
Fest, right?
events.
The
Yeah.
the Yap Fest continues.
Yeah.
Well, with VidCon, I know we're planning on potentially doing some things there. We just want to put that on everyone's sort of radar right now. We don't want to say too much because we want to keep it a surprise, but a lot of those conversations have stemmed from our South by stuff, right?
Hmm.
And I think we should do a follow-up episode post VidCon when we do whatever we end up doing over there and talk about how South by kind of kicked off all of those conversations. Because I think that's a really unique thing that people don't talk about enough of like how you actually turn a conference into a money generating sort of event for you. A lot of people just kind of go for the fun, right? But
Yeah.
if we go a little bit strategically, you can make it not only your money back on the initial spend, but also some more money post, right? And I know our goal is to try to make six figures from this podcast by the end of this year, and we might be in a good spot depending on how some of these conversations go around VidCon and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's so exciting. I also feel like I read this, like, my friend Avni made like a reel about this. She says she never pays for conference tickets. I also never paid for conference tickets, but she has, like, a cold messaging template. She's basically like, as a creator, you basically never had to pay for a conference ticket. You can, like, email people, the conference organizers, saying that you can is there any opportunities to, like, make content in exchange for a complimentary ticket? So another life hack for creators looking to go to any conference is you can probably get, like, a media pass, for free if you want to create content for these conferences too. But I'm also curious, like, how does your experience at VidCon compare to, like, South by creator economy stuff?
So VidCon for me is more of, or has been more of a party and more of a building deeper relationships with brands. So not a lot of new relationships the way that South by kind of is, but building deeper ones with the ones that I already have. And so what I mean by that is because VidCon is smaller in nature, there aren't as many brands that activate at VidCon, but it's the same brands that you're typically planning on seeing anyway. And also, since you're in sort of the uh where Anaheim area, LA area, a lot of the creator economy people are in those areas. So you'll see the same faces that you don't get to see when they have to travel to a place like Austin or whatever it may be. So that's where VidCon is for me. The most important thing, like VidCon is more of a conference for or for fans, versus South by Southwest is more of a business conference. So that's why I think there's also a difference there. And then secondly, in my opinion, the only thing that really matters at VidCon for people like us is getting access to the creator hotel. And so most people don't even know that the creator hotel is a thing. So you've got like traditional conference, which is the one that's happening within the convention center. That's where all the fan meet and greets are. There's some sessions going on. Again, most of those sessions are more like fan sessions, so to say, not really tactical stuff. There is a little bit, but nothing to the South by levels, I would say. Um, but the beauty of VidCon is that they have a hotel that's kind of like a 15-minute walk from the convention center. And that's where all of the big feature creators, they're staying there. And then brands can also pay apparently a lot of money that they have to pay to get access to activate at this creator hotel. And you're only allowed access to this creator hotel if you have a way in. So it's like you need to know someone at YouTube or Snapchat or Meta, whoever it may be, to get you on this list to get this special access to this hotel. And so that's where I typically hang out, at least for the past like 3, 4 years during vid, because whether it's creator economy, like business professionals, or it's uh, like high level creators, that's the place to be hanging out at.
Mm. Maybe this is, like, in the pod or off the pod, but how do you get into the creator hotel?
Again, you got to know someone, right? Like you
Mm.
either have to know someone, you have to find the list, basically. It's just like South by, right? In that nature of like the private parties. It's all about being in the know. I'm not gonna say who our connect would be for it, right? Because a lot of people watch this podcast, but you have to find a way to find a way in, right? That's the third door. If any of you have read the
Mhm.
book The Third Door, if you haven't, like that's one of my favorite books. You have to figure out your third door into the creator hotel. But that's where I get my ROI for sure.
Mm. Another thing related to the third door is I learned this at South by is, like, most people, you can basically almost get into every event you want if you know someone or if you act confident. Because most people working at the door doesn't work for the company. They're not paid very well. They don't give a shit. So just act like, oh yeah, my boy Mr. Beast is playing. Mr. Beast, homie since high school. Um, I've seen people do this. I went with some friends who are very confident, and they got me and my group of friends in events that are closed doors. So if you just act like you know someone, act like what you know you're doing, that's how you make the third door. Because I feel like what is hard, at least reflecting on my experience starting off as like a new designer, new creator, is like I don't know anyone, and that's how you get started. Like cold message a lot of people in DM, um, because a lot of people are not coming from places or cities where they have a big network, and your soft skills can get you very far, and your ability to raise people up. Like I sometimes you just like compliment their outfit, and they'll be like, "Oh, thank you." They don't like they forgot to check your RSVP. Maybe this could yeah. So yeah, just act like you belong. Because you do belong. If you're interested, you do belong there. You don't need some kind of gatekeepy thing to keep you out. Yeah, no, that's just something like that's not something I'm passionate about. Just because like I benefited so much from because like I came from like an engineering background. I didn't really know anybody in the creator space or in the design space just like 5 years ago. But I just kept showing up, making friends, and then just placing myself in rooms I don't on paper belong in. And slowly I like learn and build my own skills. Um, kind of like on the same level, but I don't know, they're just humans and they're just like, connecting with other humans and yeah, I don't know. Sometimes
Yeah,
people
I
are like
think
really gatekeepy. I'm just like,
no, I
what?
agree, I agree,
Yeah.
which, again, I kind of understand a little bit about gatekeeping,
Yeah.
right? But you have to look at it from the other perspective of when you're not in the room of like, all right, I just need to find a way into the room. Right. And
Mhm.
I think that's a different mindset that maybe we have versus other people might have who are listening to the pod, especially who are just getting started. Right. You might not feel that you should be in the room. Right. Which that's a completely okay and a completely normal feeling. Most people feel that way. I think the real differentiator for a lot of people, though, is being able to turn that feeling off slightly or being confident enough to not care about that feeling because, again, everyone has it. Um, so that when you get into the room, or let's just say on the off chance you're let into the room, right, you still now have to walk the walk and talk the talk. And I think you and I do a good job of that, of when we are able to get into this room, whether it's rizzing up the person at the front door, or if it's hacking a website to get in, or finding the RSVP list for whatever it may be. That's step one. Step two is once you're in the door, find out and make sure that you act the way to belong, right?
Mhm.
Because if you don't, then you get singled out very quickly. I think I don't think most people bat an eye at people in the room or once you're in the room, as long as you don't make a huge sort of like scene of yourself, right?
Mhm.
But the issue is some people, when they get into this room, they take it as like, oh, I'm only going to be able to get into this room once. And so I need to act like crazy once I'm in this room. And that's just the opposite. Like my perspective always with this stuff is once I'm in, I'm like, this is amazing. This is great that I'm in, but there'll likely be another one, especially if I act correctly in this room, I'll get invited to the next one, which is what you saw at South
Mhm.
by, right? Like you get into one private party, everyone's like, "Oh, you want to go to this one?" And then you're like, "Oh, I didn't know about it. What's the RSVP link?" And then they just send you the RSVP link, right? And like that's just how these things work.
Mhm.
Yes, you might not be in the know now, but that doesn't mean that you have to act like you're not in the know.
Yeah, it's all about like confidence and just like going in, just generally trying to meet people and seeing what they do and just vibing along, like making new friends and just being curious about other people. Because sometimes when people, I don't know, sometimes I still like feel imposter syndrome sometimes, and someone just like, I don't know, has like 20 plus years of experience, build $1 billion business. I know I probably don't have anything to offer to them, but I like asking them a lot of questions and they love to talk, and I learned so much from asking them questions. And like being a good listener also really, really helps you be able to make a lot of deep connections with people and learn a lot yourself too.
For sure. So this has kind of been like a conference masterclass, I would say,
Yeah. Yeah.
over the past like hour. Any Do you have any last piece of advice or anything when it comes to like navigating conferences, making the most out of them, or anything like that? Because I know we're about to run out of time.
Yeah, conferences. Hmm. So I've been to over 30 conferences, and I think last year I've been to like 10. But I've been doing conferences since I was in college, and my younger self, I would like read my first conference ever was Grace Hopper conference. And kind of like a little tangent is that was when I realized, oh, tech is sexy. Um, like I was just like I was just like this random bioengineering student who somehow wrote an essay to get a full ride scholarship to this conference in Orlando. Um, and I remember I felt so nervous. Like I was selected as like a Grace Hopper scholar, which apparently was hard to get into, but I don't know how I got into it, but I was like this bioengineering student, but I got into this. I'm just like, wow. And I feel like the people, this is 2018. I was like in college, and I was like, the people that all scholars stay in the same hotel. These people are, and then at Grace Hopper, it's like this really big conference where people, there's a huge, the big draw to it is this big career fair that goes on. Um, and everybody was like lining up to talk to FANG companies, and people like wanted a job. There were like interviews on site, offers being handed on site. Um, People spent years leak coding to get to software engineering roles. And all the scholars I hung out with, they were like flexing about all the offers they got. Meanwhile, I flunked an interview with Facebook. And I was just like, I am such a small potato. I don't belong here. Wow. I remember like okay, I never leak coded in my life, but I remember just feeling so I was like probably one of the most stressed out in my life because I love social media. I really wanted to work at Facebook, particularly Horizons. It was an interview with them. I remember I like talked to Facebook and like they're like scheduling me an interview in like 1 hour, and I was like so nervous. I was like I went to the Google coffee booth, and I was like chugging down a lot of coffee, and I was like nervously Googling Medium articles like how to pass a Facebook software engineering intern interview. And I was just like it was just like raining really hard. So I got back and I was just like I did have an umbrella, and I went back to convention center and I was like all soaked. So I was in the bathroom like doing that. Oh, and I flunked that interview so bad. Like I remember it was like this whiteboard interview, and the interviewer was like asking me questions and telling me to talk, and I could tell she was just like, "What the fuck?" And I was just like, "Ugh." And at the end, I was like, "Do you want to connect on LinkedIn?" And I was just like, I don't know what happened. But I just, okay, that experience was like first ever conference, and I was so stressed out. And who I would tell my younger self going to the first conference, it's like, and people were like flexing, and it's like so easy to feel a lot of imposter syndrome towards like with when you're in rooms with like all these people who might have done things that you haven't done yet, um and to like be feel like you're smaller than other people. And I just feel like if you're at a conference, you belong. If you get in the event, you belong wherever you put yourself in, and don't let that get to you. And also like don't just like go in with like less expectations, and just go with the vibes and see what happens, because I feel like for example, like last year I went to Adobe Max, um, and I just felt like I was also invited to go as like a content creator, and I flew like 60 hours that week because I was like in Bali, but they paid for everything, so I was like fine. But like 60 hours, man, I was just like, I just feel like I was trying to squeeze a lot out of it just because I feel like I sacrificed a lot of time to go there, but I just like didn't really enjoy it as much as I could have. So just like going for the vibes, like I feel like with conferences, it's good to be strategic and looking on like LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, like a hashtag to see who is going, like meet up with some people um at the conference, like plan some meetings, but also like um leave room for a lot of serendipity, because like honestly, just like go in, meet people, you never know where you end up. Don't schedule too many meetings. But it's good to like find a friend to like hop with. Like I remember you mentioned to me like a networking hack was like reach out to like people who are really busy and but also really accomplished, and just say like, "Hey, want to explore the convention center?" Like they can like mingle, you can like walk and talk, but also like go to these activations and events at the same time. So not just like sit down coffee, but like you get to explore the conference with them and just hang out with them. So that's like another like networking hack that I really like that you shared. But yeah, just don't be so nervous. Because I remember I used to be so scared of conferences, and now I'm just like, I love conferences. They're fun.
I love it. I love it. I think the only thing that I would add to that, before we jump is literally just you have to understand that it takes time, right? So you're talking about your first ever conference was 2018. My probably first ever conference was 2019. And like now, obviously 5, 6 years later, our confidence has grown, but you have to level it up, right? Slowly, just like a video game, right? Like you're not going to jump from level 1 to level 10 and like right after each other, right? It's going to take level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 to get there. And so I'm not saying don't go and do South by Southwest as your first ever conference. Like there's definitely a good learning curve that you can just kind of like throw yourself into. But if you're not the most confident person in the world or anything like that, that's completely okay. Just start small. And it's okay to start small as long as you know that you try to level up a little bit bigger every single time, right? You don't have to try and get into the VidCon creator hotel right as your first ever thing that you do. Maybe the first ever thing that you do is like you're based in Austin, it's spring break during, like, UT Austin spring break or whatever, and South by Southwest is going on, you just go to a free event that's happening at a coffee shop or whatever that's, during that time, right? And just start to figure out what's level 2, what's level 3, what's level 4, what's level 5. And then, actually, this is the last thing that I will say, um, there is almost always a way to get into conferences for free. Conferences are very expensive, especially in the business world. They get super, super expensive. Like I think South by's platinum badge was like almost 2,500 or something like that, right? So you can get into events by speaking. Typically, if you don't have that sort of brand or that influence, that's okay too. You can usually get in with a media pass, right? Let's say you're not a photographer, you're not a videographer. A lot of these events ask for volunteers as well, and they'll usually comp your badge if you volunteer. Like even South by Southwest, I think if you volunteer for like 40 hours, they give you a badge, which if you think about it, that's not a bad rate, even for like the quote unquote lower badges. Because it's like $800 for 40 hours a week, which is like a 30, was that 3,200 like in terms of monthly salary wise. But if you work a little bit more, you can get the $2,500 platinum badge, which for a lot of people, right? Like they're not making that amount of money in their job. So you can kind of get ROI positive there. So there's usually ways that around to be able to get into these conferences, especially if they're expensive. So always be on the lookout for volunteer events. Find people who are working there. Cold email them the same way that your friend Avni did. Um, there's always ways. There's always a third door into these places. That would
Mhm.
be my last piece.
Yeah. Also, remember to follow up. Conferences are a place to nurture current relationships, but also start new relationships. Like a mistake I made was in other conferences was like I would meet people, connect on LinkedIn, and never talk to them again. But some people are busy, so just following up, scheduling. If there's something you can collaborate with immediately, schedule time to talk with them more and see what happens. If you just like vibe as people, you feel like there's no collaboration, but just like you just want to get to know them more, schedule follow-ups. So important to keep following up with people and not letting these relationships go bye-bye.
I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. You'd be surprised how far a little message on the side goes, right? But
Yeah.
that's the pod, and that's our masterclass on conferences. So
Hope you
see
slay
y'all
your
next time.
day. Yeah. See you at other conferences.